some reshuffle of some of those old guards into some areas, and even some personalities have no places yet. Now the members of parliament and the leadership are saying, okay, even those who have been reshuffled and have no other ministry, they don't even know whether they are still in government or not. It became a tango on Wednesday, and particularly when these concerns have been raised also by civil society, then it becomes a subject of a bone of contention. Is it that perhaps the executive is too powerful than that? We'll be discussing about how powerful the executive is. But on this very subject, you're a member of parliament. How did it pan out in the House on Wednesday?
Well, I must confess that at the time it was being discussed, I had not entered the chamber. When I got in, the speaker was giving his last word on it, and I was happy.
But just your thoughts?
Yes, the whole issue is about governance. Governance is the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. The relationship between the governor, the executive, and the legislature, and matters in which they have shared responsibility, should not be one in which information meant for me will be read in the news media. That's the kind of concern that has been raised. You know, under our law, the president has the power to nominate, but unless parliament approves, a person does not become a minister. So when we have that shared responsibility, after you have nominated somebody, we have approved him or her, and the person has become a minister. If you're moving him or her from the position we approved him for, I think it would be, for governance purposes, to be advisable to notify me. In fact, there's even the issue as to whether, when we are being approved for Youth and Sports Ministry,
and you're moving to the next ministry,
to the Ministry
whether you
of
need
Finance,
to come back to show whether you have the competence or not.
That's right. It's being, but that issue, if you ask me, it's Parliament itself. I've always argued against our approach, that we say that we don't look at competence, we look at qualification. If you come in, that's the rule. I'm a member of the
yes, I know. I've covered Parliament a lot of times, and that's
and the rule is that we are looking at whether you qualify to be minister or not, which I think, to that extent, we are not serving the public well, because we should also look at competence. If you have a record of failures, why should we permit you to become a minister of finance and fail our economy?
You're talking about a hypothetical situation.
That's right.
I hope you're not trying to replicate a current scenario or something.
No, please. If there's any such thing, you are importing it in. I haven't, I'm just saying that if we vet somebody and approve him for a specific ministry, should it be appropriate for the president to move him or her to another place? But because Parliament has taken the position that competence is not is within our own area, and that the president determines who is competent to do what, we only look at whether the person is qualified. So it makes that point rather moot, because you have already said that the president has the power to, but should you change the person, remove him from your cabinet, should you not notify us? Then you have a situation where the announcement has been made, but the person is still working because a date to hand over has been set by the president. We had one example yesterday when Deputy Minister for Finance, Ricketts Hagen, has been moved to Trade. But he was leading the discussion before the Joint Committees of Finance and Roads and Transport on the Atuabu Freeport project. So yesterday when he came, we raised issues. Where is your locus? You have because we know you're being reassigned. That was when he informed us that the effective date for his reassignment is 1st July.
And that has not been communicated to you as
to Parliament. So those are the issues. That's what the Speaker meant when he says that I admit questions intended for ministers. When there's confusion as to which person is in charge of which ministry, it makes the work of Parliament difficult, and our oversight is sometimes hampered.
I believe our democracy is not static. It's a movement, evolving, right? So as we go along, we just correct ourselves. But see, when the president was making this announcement, Parliament was in recess. You remember, they were supposed to go back and they hadn't gone back. So they were in recess. And governance must continue.
That's your defense.
That's right, it must continue. And you realize that there was a lot of expectations and all manner of agitation going on. The president has to reshuffle, and people were...
Well, we do understand, but even there's been the argument, if you're bringing this one in, that even the key ministries that were being agitated to be changed.
No, but it's an ongoing process. Yeah, it's not complete.
The reshuffling is ongoing.
Yeah, it's ongoing. It's a whole process, right? So, granted, we can give the excuse that at that particular moment of time, Parliament was... Otherwise, I know every time before the names are announced, Parliament is always informed. That has been a practice, right? This is a small aberration that I feel that we shouldn't fight over it, and just so that next time Parliament is in recess, what should we do? The Speaker, obviously, his office probably was open. I don't know when we are in recess whether the whole parliamentary system shuts down and everybody, including the clerk and the staff and everything. So as we go, when the mistakes or whatever, we correct them. And I don't think this should be a problem for us.
You think this is a non-starter at all? It's a non-issue.
No, that we should grovel over. I mean, we must move on. Next time, if Parliament is on recess and the government wants to do something with Parliament, what's the procedure? They should tell us, because we don't know.
Well, Mr. also, and in any circumstance in which you are on recess as Parliament, and then there's this very formative missive or this very communication, you're supposed to be informed adequately.
The Speaker's office is open every
because we
day.
have the clerks working.
The clerks
So
don't
formally, you're just supposed to notify.
Yeah, right.
So
if there was a need, for example, we're asking for, when the communication comes to the Speaker, as soon as Parliament resumes, you formally inform the House.
But the public too must be informed.
No, but if the communication has reached the Speaker already and the public is informed, then there's no issue.
You don't inform one and then leave the most essential.
That's right. Sometimes we are being recalled to come and vet a minister because we consider that person his appointment urgent. So we are on recess, but the Speaker can recall us on an issue like that for work to be done. That's right.
Okay, so now let's talk about this. Mr. Adekoka is raising a subject, saying that issues come up. We notice that these are perhaps issues that we need to deliberate on, and then we resolve and go on. In Parliament, what usually is a practice? We have what your standing orders say. Do you also have norms, perhaps, informally?
Well, yeah, there are informal things that are not written, but there's the culture of the House. And in this case, as it's noted yesterday, as soon as it was raised, the majority leader, who the leader of government business, accepted that was improper, and he will pass it on to the executive. And the Speaker said he was happy about the acceptance and
from
the
both
formality.
sides.
So for as far as Parliament itself is concerned, it's done. Lessons to be learned.
Move on.
Right. But of course, the press picks it up for public discussion so that the public would know that this matter was raised, this is how it has been resolved. So as far as Parliament itself is concerned, it's finished. The lessons, as he said, will be learned from it so that in future it is not repeated.
But there's a subject in the House, and I have to still keep focusing on you, because, well, it says Parliament should not be sidelined, amendment of entrenched provisions. And were you the one I brought in the House here?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you were arguing on phone with Muntanka, Honorable Muntanka, on the subject of what the amendments and those entrenched provisions, and whether the Council of State should be the foremost entity as far as the body that should just accept and refer back to the Speaker for you to approve as a plenary or the committee as a whole. What's still your position on it as a House?
Well, our position has not changed. That it is unheard of for amendment of the constitution of the country to be carried through without Parliament deliberating on it. Our position has not changed. And interestingly, very many civil service organizations actually agree with that. I'm aware that Star Ghana engaged an expert to write an opinion. He spoke to me. After that, he sent me a copy. His opinion appears to agree with us. I'm also happy that the Council of State listened to our plea petition and actually returned the processes to the Speaker, asking that the House should look at it before it goes anywhere. I'm surprised that now Muntaka is saying that Parliament should not be sidelined, because at the point he was arguing that the Parliament has no role at all in the amendment.
As after further deliberations and...
Well, that's, for me, that is the spirit, because you see the issue that was being put on a referendum, one of them was clearly one of the matters he's concerned about. But if the matter were not to be discussed in Parliament, he would not have an opportunity to speak to it the way he's speaking and advise his constituents the way to vote. You know, so we should be careful not to sideline Parliament in any of the things that relates to the people of Ghana.
You know, I have a different opinion. We are talking about the Constitution, right? And you cannot leave that to 230 people to discuss it. There has been a nationwide discussion on this, right?
Where they had solicited views. And those comprehensively have been put in the report. And the report submitted to the presidency.
That's right.
The presidency has put a committee.
Correct.
And as a result of that, the concerns of that very report of the committee is a subject of discussion among members of Parliament, who are the foremost representatives of the people.
But we have spoken out already.
You are who?
By the going out, people have...
And you have your representatives who are supposed to undertake...
Are they going to change what we want to be done? For instance, here's a situation where you have ministers coming from Parliament, right? And when you take this to Parliament, when they know the benefits they get being MPs and being ministers, right? Are they going to allow the amendment that now majority of ministers should come from outside Parliament? Do you think they are going to deliberate and accept that? I've just heard a few of them argue no. You see, you cannot go and put the meat in the mouth of the cat. It's going to chew it. You understand? So that is what we are talking about.
Both of you are politicians.
Yes.
I mean, he's a member of Parliament, but both of you are politicians. Yes. I would want to ask you and pick your thoughts on this very subject, whether it is prudent or more prudent, so to speak, if we have a lot more ministers, and I have followed this up over the decades, over the last couple of years, that the argument has always been, if we have a lot more ministers outside the House, then the president will be more in a position to do a lot of the things that he wants to do. And the parliamentarians or the legislature would also concentrate on his activity. But somehow there are cross functions that you can't delineate.
Yeah. I believe strongly that we've come to a period in our democratic practice that we need to let the parliamentarians go to Parliament and do what they are supposed to do, to legislate and have oversight over the executive. Right? Look at the United States of America. Do you see the congressmen and the senators becoming secretaries of state? When you do that, you have to resign your position as a congressman or a senator. And the system is working. Right? But here we have a situation, and because of that, right, when you come to parliamentary elections and you come to, you see, somebody knows that, look, for me to...
So there's keen interest in both.
That's right. Yeah. You know, so I believe that it has come to a time that we should look at it. That's why I'm saying that you cannot leave this to parliamentarians to discuss. I mean, why would they want to disenfranchise themselves? They won't do that.
We'll come to the argument as to whether parliamentarians are supposed to are supposed to look into a debate.
So for us,
is it 41 provisions?
Yeah,
41 recommended provision, or 42?
Well, what I saw that about 19 of them were to be put on the referendum.
Yeah.
19.
Roland.
And it was not clear even how it was going to be done, whether one question or
at the time for the referendum,
or one question for the whole.
Yeah. So I think as we make progress, right, we've done this for the past 20 years or so, and we've all realized that it's not, because look, for instance, they themselves in Parliament, they want a minister to come and answer questions. The minister's out of the country. Right. So that particular question or is then shelved. And take another 2, 3, 4, 5 months for it to come back again. Right? And when they come back again, the minister has traveled again. So does that inure to their benefit? No. So we've practiced and we've realized that it is better the ministers are coming out of Parliament. Let them go there and do their legislative activities. And that will be that will be more, it will make this country move forward. Because there are people outside who are also good enough to have enough experience, but because of the rigors of Parliament, they wouldn't want to go and get themselves embroiled in the fight that me and my brother will. But probably outside they just sell in business. No, look at other like what I'm talking about. You go the people, captains of industry, people have excelled. You know, they now want to serve their country. Look at Kerry, a former presidential candidate, aspirant. You know, when you see Kerry as a Secretary of State talking, you know that the man is up there.
What are you talking about? That we should have a presidential aspirant go and say
no, I'm just telling you that.
No, I just want you to relate some of your issues you are saying. Perhaps maybe you are trying to relate the thing to current scenario.
I'm telling you where in other jurisdictions, right, they are using people, captains of industry, and it's helping their democracy. You have a situation where you have a divided attention. The minister is in Parliament. You go there in the morning, today, if there's parliamentary activities from 8 o'clock to about what, 2 p.m., he's going to spend all the time in Parliament. Then he will leave the job for the directors. For the life of the Parliament, count the number of times that he's going to spend in Parliament, the number of times he's going to spend on his desk working. You have a problem.
What's the advantage or what's the pro and con?
Well, first, I must talk about the constitutional amendment. The Constitution is clear. It's by an act of Parliament. So it can never be otherwise, except that when it's an entrenched provision, that act must also be subjected to a referendum. That's the way I see the situation. So whether that means putting the meat in the cat's mouth or not, that is where it must be. But as to whether the legislature suffers because of some members of the executive being in the House, I think that it cannot be in doubt that in Ghana, that has been the case. I'm all for any program or any arrangement that strengthens Parliament to make it stand on its own.
In your position?
In my view.
In your view?
Yes.
Which one strengthens?
You see, it's either all in or all out.
We can't have some in, some out.
It
doesn't work.
The hybrid is not working.
Thank you.
What we need is to build a culture that strengthens, or for each one that we choose, we must build a practice around it. Secondly, the Constitution itself makes it almost impracticable for the legislature to have true oversight of the executive. So you're saying that there's too much power vested in the executive? Our president under our Constitution
is the boss.
Is His Imperial Majesty. He has the power to do anything.
Is the Otumfo?
Otumfo's power is limited to...
I know. I mean, when it comes to his traditional...
His Imperial Majesty, he can do anything. He has the power to appoint even cleaners. If you look at the respective legislations of the state agencies, the power to appoint even cleaners are vested in the president. If you look at under true democracies, the Auditor General is an agent of Parliament.
Another
is the tool by which,
yes,
the tool by which Parliament oversees the executive expenditure and so on. But in Ghana's constitution, that tool is under the control of the president.
How has that been detrimental to the progress of the current dispensation we're having and the overall development of the country, as far as the decision making is concerned?
You see that the legislature is ineffective. When it comes to oversight, we are ineffective. Our budget is controlled by the executive. So when you need money to oversee him, you won't get the money. The independent institutions, whether it is Auditor General, whether it's Shiraj, whether it's even Electoral Commission, we determine how much budget you get. If we don't give you that, you can't do the things you want to do. So we have designed our constitution such that it's almost impracticable for any of the agencies, the institutions designed to oversee the executive to be effective. Right. But if you have an all-in, the Westminster style, then you, the president or prime minister, you're part of parliament. And therefore, your colleagues have control over you. Your colleagues must influence your
all
work.
in.
Yeah, that's every minister is also part of the executive.
The president has a constituency.
Yes.
And then his ministers also
his
have
ministers have constituencies. Your constituents can change you if you the prime minister.
Yeah.
And then your colleagues. You're elected as head by your colleagues. So if you think that, look, you're leading us into the ditch and you won't listen to us, then
and then the other side is all out.
The all out is the one which no executive is in the legislature.
And no legislative person is in the executive.
In that case, we build strong bonding as one body, as against the executive. You know.
All well and good, Joe Wise. But as far as we're concerned, within the milieu of the current dispensation we practice and our voting patterns and perceived regionalism, ethnicity, and the way we conduct our politics. If there's a scenario where we have a party in government that has less majority in the House, that poses a difficulty. I'm asking this because we've had a precedent in the House. I've read it in my history books before. That is in the PPP government.
No, Liman's government.
His budget was not approved in the House.
By some people.
He have a majority.
Majority by some people.
Well, we do understand that, but in scenarios where you have a shift in whoever controls the House, it poses great difficulty when we have an all-out system, doesn't it?
No,
is that not why the framers of the Constitution thought it otherwise, that it will be more fruitful and...
no, the thinking at that time probably will be that. But we are making progress. Now, in in certain
areas, it can't happen now.
Yeah, in certain areas, we've got something called proportional representation, right? Where everybody, if you have 10 parties, every party has got a representation in parliament and in governance. So there's a coalition. Look at what's happening in UK now. It's a coalition between the Lib Dem and the Conservative Party, right?
And it's working well.
And it's working well, right? So as we move on, so
we can have
between
the MPP and NDC.
We should be able to have. We are not talking about consensus in this country. Why do we?
No, perhaps maybe in the next 50 years we can do that.
That is, we have. You see, in these democracies, they probably over 50, 100 years ago, and they've evolved over the years. So probably we have just done this 20 years ago, and we are now realizing, as my brother is saying, he said all in or all out, because you practice for 20 years, and you realize that the in out is not endurable, because like you said, if the government wants to make life difficult for the parliamentarians, their budget will not come, and the committee meetings will not take place, right? But then if it's separated, they know that they have to determine their own budget,
and then they can hold a lot more people accountable.
That's it. So
okay. Now, the other scenario is we're having some members argue, and very formative leaders argue that, I mean, the current status quo should remain. Why would members of parliament want to be part of the executive?
Well, the current status makes, indeed, forces the president to select majority.
No, I know.
Yes.
The scenario, now we have two schools of thought, right? And the other school of thought says all out.
Yes.
And I'm saying those who still want to maintain the hybrid.
The hybrid, yes.
Why would they still want to maintain the hybrid? Why would we want to have a group of members of parliament who want some of them to be chosen because their government is in power or not to be ministers of state or to be part of the executive just to delineate whatever organs of government we have?
Well, I think they believe that permits some kind of cooperation between the executive and the judicial and the legislature. You know that in 1979, what happened to Liman's Professor Bennett's budget was that their own members were not in the House, and it was believed that because of the all-out situation, the MPs thought that we have done the dirty work. You are now enjoying the books.
Can't it happen again?
It can. It's human. It's a human nature, because they were envious. Whether you like it or not, it has always been the case that the executive is better compensated than all other agencies. It's still the case.
So you're saying that if we want the other status quo to be enforced or to come to fruition, then we need to look at emoluments and things like that.
Look at how you take care of them. Compare now.
You guys already are earning so much. You still want to...
That's what you think.
The way you're pointing your fingers at me, but it's true.
No, the truth of the matter is that the perception is way different from the reality.
So it's a perception I have.
Yes. You have heard figures, but haven't seen the details of what constitutes the figures and what costs, what is taken out of the absolute figure you have heard, and what is the net that I get. I was head of DVLA as executive. I knew in terms of take home, not different from what I get as MP. But as an addition, I was housed. I had 2 official vehicles. I had official drivers.
Well, you're a chief executive for a state institution that controls a lot of money and revenue.
Well, but it's not my money.
I know, because by virtue of what you do, you have a certain operational mandate.
But should that be the case? Why should the MP pay by his own vehicle?
But you're doing a public service. Why do you want to be paid like a chief executive officer? If that is what we're digressing.
Is the chief executive not doing a public service? Is the minister not doing a public service? So that dichotomy is what generated some of the things that we do the dirty work. We go to all the villages to go and campaign. When we win power, then you come from nowhere. Sometimes when we were campaigning, you were living abroad. Then you come with your polished
I get the point. Like what happens currently sometimes.
Right. So that generates kind of ill feeling, and those are some of the things that they believe.
And you're saying it could happen?
It could.
It could happen.
So those are some of the disadvantages of either system, whether all out or all in. The all in, the advantage is that, the disadvantage is that there could be insecurity. Because, for example, the NDC majority, if the president were a member of parliament and they were not happy with him, they'll change him. Sometimes they need coalitions. Some members of the MPP, NDC would know. This are
because if they have camps, for example, if they have,
so they move
if
to
they
join
have
the
one
other
person,
side,
they are getting a lot more support.
And then they immediately,
you can't get the quorum,
they become the majority, and you have to change leadership.
But for a developing country and looking at our political history, that will not be too good.
But these are the hazards of democracy.
That's the point.
But we all agree that's a way to go now.
Yeah, as a way forward, we should also look at best practices and how are they working, right? And then we take a cue from them, because we cannot remain as you're saying that because you are afraid that somebody will come in out of nowhere to. But we are looking like you said about competence. That person coming in, what is he adding to the development of the country? If you look at that bit, then all these nuances will not be necessary. You see, it's important that the person is coming into to measure some. Look, for instance, I like throwing out names. For instance, Kofi Annan, right? If he was in, I mean, he
could have been a good vice president.
Well, he could have, if not a vice president, he could have played an active role with the experience that he has got all over the world in our government. I mean, so these are the kind of things that we should be looking at and see, because this country needs to move into the 22nd century. We are now in the 21st century, and we are having floods.
No, we're in 20th. I think you said we need to move into 20th because we're in 20th now.
That's right.
We're in 20th.
No, the world is, but we are behind the screen. So probably we have to move.
We have to move, you understand? So we need to get the best practices. It's not rocket science. Right? We have to be innovative and move on. Otherwise, 10 years' time, 20 years' time, probably we will not be around. But those who will come around and say, what did we do? What legacy did we leave behind?
So that's what we're doing, shaping up.
But what we should develop is practices and cultures that support good governance.
That brings the issue of the amendments also. The entrenched provisions. And the very arguments that resurface on Wednesday and the latter part of the day, especially in the news media, concerning whether parliaments, and you have advocated that all along, you should argue on which of those entrenched provisions and will be, because they've gone through and particularly I'm very much emotional about the subject of the election of the various MMDA heads, or is it MMDC heads?
Yeah.
So that's a very serious issue for me, because I don't see why the president would have to nominate 5 people and then put out there for the citizenry to to vote, or in that very contest, the citizenry in that very jurisdiction to vote. It's almost like you're still electing your own people.
But you see, it is the culture we are afraid to change.
Yes.
Centralism is so deeply entrenched in us. Everybody thinks that unless you are related or linked to the center, in this case the presidency, then you have no power. And the presidency and the people around the presidency are unwilling to permit the lower levels to be independent. That is where the challenge is. That culture that we must change. The culture of permitting the lower levels to think and plan and implement plans as suits the environment. Why should the president think that he knows better the people who live at Bekwai and can appoint a better person for them than the people themselves?
So you argue that Parliament, the thing should come to Parliament, right? And then you, Committee of the Whole, the plenary, you argue like...
Yes, we can sit at plenary, we can invite opinions, discuss before... I mean, we should never accept the culture where amendments to the Constitution are done outside Parliament. It will be a bad culture. Yeah. It's not done anywhere. And any interpretation that moves us away from the culture of letting the people's representatives...
Our problem is that we have gone out to the country.
And these are the
views of the country.
But the views were taken to the president, and the president also
made changes.
Even that cabinet,
small group,
that sounds small.
They made changes.
That's the difficulty they have.
You know, so what is wrong with the entire house?
But these very arguments you're making, they're not political, are they?
Oh no.
Developing new cultures.
No, I'm just asking. Because this one I haven't read any politics. That's why it's as if there's some level of consensus.
That's right.
I think that when it comes to things that will favor the politicians, they tend to...
Roland.
Okay. So I have had in the studio two important politicians in Ghana. Joe Wise, or Joe Osewusu, one-time chief executive of the DVL. I like to say that because, well, he seemed to have enjoyed that very position that he's enjoying now. But he'll still stand, go through primaries for the MPP and still...
That's an assumption.
I'm sure he'll win. Oh, it's not an assumption, it's true. I think that you serve the people of Bekwai well. He's a member of parliament for Bekwai and a member of the MPP. Thanks for joining us. And he's also chairman of Parliament's Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee. Okay, and I won't repeat that side.
That's
but this one, chairman.
So I'm ranking member.
You're ranking. Okay.
Yes, chairman is for majority. The alternates, the ranking or the minority.
So you're a ranking member.
That's right.
Who will be chairman the next if they win? Okay. So chairman of NDC Greater Accra, Joseph Ni Ade Koka.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all. I know he's been challenged, but that's it for AM Talk. Next, we have Mamavi Uswapwaji talking football with Augustina Himfo and I believe one other personality. If it's not Benedict Owusu, then somebody else. And what would they be speaking about? The World Cup. I wish I could give my guests one more point, but I can't. We're taking a break. Please, if you want to watch the program, you want to watch the segment, just log on YouTube, AM Show or AM Talk or any of the segments, and then you get to see the videos that are on the channel Major Online, and you get to watch all those videos. YouTube, don't worry, just type AM Show, AM Talk, you get all those videos. We're taking a break, we'll be right back.